Hello everyone, my name is Josh Maurer. I'm an instructor at Broken Plow, and I am going to teach you footwork today. First thing we're going to go over is our stance. We're going to have our front foot forward, whichever foot you want forward. If you're starting off in Vom Tag, if you're a righty, you want your left foot forward. If you're a lefty, you want your right foot forward. For now, because I'm a righty, my left foot's going to be forward. The knee and the toe of your front foot, it should be pointing at your opponent. Your back foot should be shoulder width apart from your front foot. So if I'm shoulder width apart here, imagine that there's a box with length sides of your shoulder width. It's going to be shoulder width this way and shoulder width back. So it's going to be diagonally back from your front foot. Your foot on your back foot will be pointing at a 45-degree angle at the corner of the room. You're going to bend your knees a little bit. This is going to give you some good stability for someone trying to push or kick you, and will allow you to move really well as well. Now, the first step that we're going to go over is the simple step. Simple step is just moving with your front foot forward always. When we do this, we want to actually propel ourselves off our back foot. We don't want to step forward. What we want to do is we want to push off our back foot with our whole body moving as one forward. Okay? To get this feeling, you have to feel like you're pushing off your back foot and building up tension to then move forward. You want this to be as laterally as possible. You don't want to move up and down. Otherwise, they'd put you in a disadvantage if someone would catch you mid-step. It also takes longer as well. So, push off that back foot forward. These steps don't have to be very big. In fact, shorter steps are faster. And the reason why is that you can only go as fast as your back foot catches up to your front foot. This motion here. So the faster that motion becomes, the quicker you can take the next step. This also becomes very important when you're in a fighting situation, because when you are in the middle of a step, the longer it takes you to get to a fighting step means the longer you can take to take an actual fighting action, like a strike or a thrust. Because you can't take a very good strike or thrust from here. You have to actually be from a fighting stance to get a good strike or thrust, or at least to defend yourself. So, if that's how it is going forward, pushing off the back foot, when you're going backwards, you're pushing off the front foot. Same idea. Whole body moves at once, pushing off that front foot back, and we can only move as fast as our front foot catches up. Now, I always keep saying as our foot catches up. What I mean by that is that it moves from back here back to a fighting position. I don't mean a gathering step where our feet come together. We want to maintain that fighting distance. When we use the simple step, it is usually to approach an opponent when we're in a situation where it's dangerous, where we could be in a situation where they could take one step and then strike at us. We use the simple step to chase down an opponent. Like if we cut to long point and we are going to thrust and they step back, we can chase them with simple steps. We can use simple steps to retreat. Now we'll move on to passing steps. Passing steps, as the term implies, is your back foot is going to pass your front foot, or your front foot is going to pass the back foot. And they're going to exchange which one's the front and the back. So just like before, we're in our fighting stance. Front foot forward, knees and toes pointed towards our opponent. Back leg shoulder width apart, with the foot pointing off a 45-degree angle. And all we're going to do is step forward. But when we step, we use our hips. We use our hips and our back leg to propel us forward and maintain that fighting distance. I'm maintaining my shoulder width apart. That never changed. So when you take the step forward, you don't take it and cross over your feet and now I have my heels in line. We want to maintain that space so we maintain our stability. And when we step, it's not a normal step, right? This stuff, not this. We want to use our hips and propelling off our back leg to move forward. The reason being that it gives us the most stability and strength when we're moving forward. If you have a partner or someone that is willing to help you, you can do your own paired drill. When you're at home, if you're going up and down a hallway, if you're in the living room and you have a lot of space, you can go back and forth. You can put your hands out in front of you, and all you're going to do is you're going to use your passing steps to move forward while the other person's resisting on you. And the other person's going to give you a lot of resistance. If you step normally, you're not going to move them. You're going to stay here and you're not going to go anywhere because you're up, off the ground, you're on one foot, you're not using anything other to propel you other than just stepping and falling. So you're not going to go anywhere. You have to turn your hips into the step to get yourself to move. So that's something you can do going back and forth in your house if you have someone to do that with. Otherwise, you just have to practice moving your hips so that you're moving laterally. If you saw before when I was stepping normally and not stepping as we would with a passing step, I was going up and down with my head. And when I was using my hips, I was moving laterally. My head wasn't really moving at all. That's what we want. When we use the passing step, it's usually when we're out at a safe distance. So that means if we're out of the other person could cut to long point and be at distance to us, we're safe. So we can use passing steps out there. We can also use passing steps when we go to attack. When we're in that distance and they haven't done anything that would put us in danger, we can use that passing step. The reason why we don't want to use the passing step to approach is because if we get to the point where we are at a distance that they could cut the long point at us, while we're in the middle of a step because we didn't time it correctly or we didn't manage the distance well, we'll be caught mid-step and we'll be cut off balance. Whereas a simple step, that's less likely to happen because the amount of time it takes to move from one fighting position to another fighting position is very short. So we're less likely to get caught off guard. Now we're going to move on to triangle steps, which are passing steps, but we're going off angle. They might also be called by one of your instructors as compass steps. So if I'm imagining my opponent in front of me, I'm going to move around them by stepping at a 45-degree angle with a passing step and turning with my hips to come back to face them in a fighting position. So that would end up if I'm going to my right, I have my left foot forward, passing step with my right foot out to the side, and I'm using my hips and my right foot is forward and my toes and my knees are pointed towards my target. One thing to keep in mind when you are making this passing step, so I'm going to turn off angle to the camera, I'm going to take a passing step to my right. That is going to be my triangle compass step. When I take the step, it's a passing step, but I am in my fighting position. That never changed. Each step is from fighting position to fighting position. So if I'm stepping over there to get to his flank, I'm making a passing step, but I'm maintaining that space between my legs. I'm maintaining a fight position. And then I'm using my hips to turn and face my opponent at that angle. I'm not using my back leg to swing myself around. It is my hip, my front hip, that's driving the motion. If you use your back leg to try and get this spinning motion, what'll end up happening more than likely is your legs will have their heels either lined up or the back foot will be past the front foot with its heel. And that's what we don't want, because that puts us off balance. So when we take this step, each step is a fighting step. Passing step, fighting step. Using my front hip to turn myself, fighting stance. Okay? And when we would use this triangle step, this compass step, is all the time. Anytime we want to make a passing step, use a triangle step or a compass step. For the most part, especially when we're in fighting distance, because that changes where center is. If anybody understands where the center is in a fight, the center is between me and you. And if I step over here and you're still pointing to where I was, you're pointing at what was center, but what isn't center anymore. Because I'm facing you and you're not. And I'm facing center and you're not. And we want to control center. So by stepping off line, I change where center is. I give myself the advantage. Now, let's talk a little bit more about when we would use these with certain strikes. Now, not all of you may have learned the master strikes, but we're going to do it anyway. So, if we're doing something like Zornhau. Zornhau doesn't really have much of a step. All it is a turning of the hips. But we're turning our hips as if we made a passing step. That's the kind of motion that we need to get the Zornhau out to make that good cut. If we don't use our hips, then we're not making a good cut. And if you don't think hips are part of footwork, you're wrong. When we go to do a Shielhau, there are a number of different ways to cut the Shielhau to attack in. Either step off to the side and cut the Shielhau to the shoulder, or you can step out this way and cut the Shielhau to the shoulder. I like this way better because it's a lot less dangerous. It gives you a lot more time to cut it. But that's my opinion. When you're cutting a Scheitelhau, so that's Scheitelhau, cutting to the head, no further against an Alber. It's a lot easier when you make a triangle step and cut to the head. Basically, anytime you're going to attack and you are in distance or you are in range, triangle step, compass step. Because that changes the angle that gives you a greater advantage. If you keep going straight forward and staying on a line all the time, you're putting yourself in the best advantage and angles to attack your opponent. Easiest strike to show this off with, which unfortunately I don't have Bob, is the Zwerchau. If you go straight on against somebody with a Zwerchau and you try to hit the target, you're not. You're going to hit them in the forehead. And that's going to give them a very easy angle to defend against with a parry. If, however, you step offline with a triangle step or a compass step, you can get to that back ear. And that gets you to that angle. And if they try to parry you, it's a lot harder. As far as footwork goes, I think that's pretty much all I have for you today. So that's simple step, passing step, triangle step. If you guys have any questions about that, please message any of the instructors or myself, and we'll be glad to help you with anything you don't understand or you need help with. Thank you again. This was Footwork with Josh Maurer.